It will warm up shortly, and I've got a lot of echo feedback or something. So lie on your back. Actually, those of you who've got water bottles or books or cups near you, could you please put them to the edges of the room? As you lie on your back, what comes to your attention this morning? So take a few moments just to notice how you sense the contact of the floor with yourself. And how you might allow your attention to wander through yourself, be with yourself, to notice what's present for you. If something stands out, if your attention's drawn to some particular relationship or shape or part of yourself. Notice your breathing. How do you notice your breathing this morning? Do you begin to sense some place in yourself where it's familiar? That you can identify that informs you. That you're breathing in or breathing out. And maybe it's a different place as you breathe in than when you breathe out. Think of the length of your spine. Is there any place along the length of your spine where you sense the sensations of movement that might indicate how your breath forms there? How do you sense your 5 lines this morning? That image that we've been using, the sense of their length, their direction. Is one of your lines more present for you than another? Just notice the lines of your legs, your right leg, your left leg, the line of your spine from your tailbone to your head. And the lines of your arms. What would it be like to take a snapshot of how you're lying now? How you're relating to the floor, how you distribute your weight, and this image that you form now of yourself. And please roll yourself to one side and bring yourself up via sitting into standing. So you may want to stand on the floor beside your mat, particularly if your mat's fairly soft. To begin with, the floor will give you a clearer feedback of what we're exploring this morning. So sense your 5 lines now. The lines of your legs, the line of your spine, the lines of your arms. Attend for a moment to how you sense your breathing here in standing. Does it form in different places or similar places than what you sensed lying down? Shift your attention to how your feet are relating to the floor. You sense you have more weight on one leg than the other. How would you know that? Is there anything you can notice about the shape of your legs, the musculature of your legs or buttocks? That might be a little different on one side to the other. And bring your attention to your right foot. Notice how your right foot contacts the floor. Where do you feel more contact and where do you feel less contact? Do you feel more contact at the front of your foot, the toes or the balls of your foot, the balls of the toes, or the heel? Do you feel more weight on the outside edge of your foot or on the inner edge of your foot? Maybe it's the outside edge of one part and the inner edge on another part of your foot. Notice that. And then listen into how your left foot contacts the floor. Again, where is there more contact? Where is there less contact? Do you feel more pressure where there's more contact or where there's less contact, a smaller area? That might give you a sense of whether you're standing more on the heel or the front of your foot on your left foot. And how does the outside edge of your left foot contact the floor from your heel to your little toe? And the inside of your left foot. Can you compare, now that you've, in a more detailed way, tuned into how each foot contacts the ground, can you compare your right foot to the left? In the way they contact the ground. Sense your breathing again. And begin to make a small shift of your weight. So you bring your weight more towards one foot and pause there a moment. And come back through the middle and then shift your weight more onto the other foot. And listen to how each foot receives your weight, how it accepts the weight as you bring yourself more onto that foot, and how your weight leaves the other foot. Can you sense your breathing as it comes and goes as you do that? And how is the rest of you moving above your feet? So we've been exploring a lot this week the relationship of your head to your pelvis and what happens through the length of your spine. So you might notice, do you move your head? Or how does your head relate to the foot that's accepting your weight, on the right and on the left, and what's happening through your spine, through your torso. Okay, and then rest in walking. While you're resting and walking, notice how each foot finds the floor, which part of your foot lands on the floor first, and then how do you bring your weight over that foot? And what's the last part of your foot to leave the floor? Do you have any sense of how each foot accepts your weight as you're bringing your weight over it, and then momentarily standing on one leg and bringing your other leg forwards? And what do you notice through the length of your spine and your torso as you're doing that? And then find somewhere to stand again. And slowly begin to bring your right foot in front of your left foot, to the left of your left foot. So you could put it on the floor to the left of your left foot. And then come back. Just notice how you're doing that. Where do you land your right foot relative to your left foot? Is it close to your left foot? Is the heel closer to your left foot? Is the heel forwards of your left foot? Or land somewhere along relative to the outside edge of your left foot? Can you do that in a way that doesn't interfere with your breathing? Next time your right foot is to the left of your left foot, stay there. And just notice how comfortable it is for you to stand like this, new way of standing. If it's really challenging, you could go near a wall and put a finger on a wall, rather than making it too difficult for yourself. So which foot is taking more weight now? Is your weight more on your left foot, more on your right foot? Begin to shift your weight more onto your right foot, and then back to your left foot. And just notice how your right foot receives your weight, and how you stand, so to speak, above your right leg when it's crossed over like this. And then how your left leg, your left foot accepts your weight. So notice as you're doing that, are your legs tightly pressing against one another? Or is there space between them? So press your legs against one another and shift your weight a little more onto your right foot, and then onto your left foot. And notice how that influences your breathing. And then let your legs be a little softer relative to one another, and move your weight left and right. Noticing, does your weight come onto your right foot differently to when you were standing with your feet more parallel? Different part of your foot? And where do you bring your weight on your left foot now? Okay. uncross your legs. Stand for a moment and just give yourself a little time to notice if anything emerges in your standing, in your way of standing, the way your feet relate to the floor. And go for a rest in walking. Come back to standing again. Cross your right foot over your left leg, so that you land on the floor somewhere to the left of your left foot. Just explore. So some people have got their feet touching. So that really reduces the size of the base of the support. Other people have got the right foot more forwards in front of, more forwards of their left foot. And other people are more in the direction of the feet being adjacent to one another. So just play with where the position of your right foot that feels comfortable for you at the moment, where you can find that your breathing can continue without being held, and you can shift your weight a little left onto your right foot, and then back onto your left foot. Pay attention to, how are you doing this? Where do you initiate this from? What do you feel through yourself, and what's moving in space? So shift your weight more onto your right leg, then back onto your left leg, many times. Does your weight shift forwards and backwards, or is it more left and right? So part of that will depend on the position of your feet relative to one another. But you're really thinking your weight is coming onto your right foot, and then back to returning to your left foot. Okay. Rest in standing. You can rest in walking if you choose. Could you cross your right leg and put it on the floor, your foot on the floor, to the left of your left foot? Slowly bring your weight, so more of your weight is on your right foot than the left. And begin to shift your weight from here a little more towards the front of your foot, and then return to where you were, standing on the whole of your foot. So go forwards just to the front of your foot, and then return again. How do you do this? Can your legs, remind yourself to keep your legs soft, and feel, where do you initiate this from? What's happening between your pelvis and your head? If you can, let your arms hang by your sides. So we're just doing the right foot in front of the left.
It's really hard with that side, and I find it...
So take a wall for this one.
What's that, sorry?
Unless you've got pain, take the wall. Give yourself a little bit of assistance. Rest a moment. Go for a walk. Rest in walking. Say more, Priscilla? Say more? Do you want to say more? Tell me more. It is challenging because we're changing our familiar base of support, our familiar organisation of standing with our legs. Notice as you're walking, do you feel any difference between your right foot and how it contacts the floor and your left? And how you bring your weight, how your sense of standing on your right leg as you travel over it. Now please stand again. Cross your right leg over the left. Shift your weight more onto your right foot. This time, bring your weight backwards a little bit, towards your heel. More towards your heel, and then return to more of the whole foot. And do that many times. And you still sense how your left foot is touching the floor. So if possible, the whole of the left foot is on the floor. So there's a few people that have got the inside edge of their left foot lifted away from the floor. See, can you put your sole of your left foot onto the floor? The sole of your left foot. Then don't. So the intention is to keep the feet in contact. Can you put the sole? Have a look. Yeah, there.
I was on the right left foot.
On the right left foot. I understand that confusion. Maybe you can appreciate that too yourself. Okay, now begin to go forwards and backwards. And observe, are you moving as one piece? So we've been explored that a little bit in some ATMs. Or are you perhaps doing it more with your emotion of your pelvis and action of your pelvis, forwards and backwards? Check in with your breathing. Okay, uncross your legs. Sense your way of standing for a moment. Shift your weight a little left and a little right. See if you notice any differences between how each of your feet and legs receives the weight. And then have a little rest in walking. So our brains do get jumbled, can get jumbled when we... So how do we know in this different... How do we find ourselves in a different configuration? And then have a rest on your back. What did you discover, Margaret? Was it a discovery or you needed the rest on your back?
I need the rest on my back.
So, what stopped you from resting on your back before?
Curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to stay there and find out as much as I can find out. I'm ready.
Uh-huh. So perhaps it's a moment to remind yourselves, as the laughter might indicate, that you know. And that our enthusiasm and our curiosity can be both our strength and our weakness, depending on the timing. That's fine. You could try the fluoros off. I'll just tell you whether... Yeah, it's getting familiar. So maybe the middle light's on, the ball lights? Yes, that's good. You see, we have to experiment. We have to try things out.
You have to make a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
They're not mistakes, they're variations.
That's right. The other way of reframing mistakes is their retakes. Opportunities to discover. How else? Anyone else got another definition or reframe for mistake? Learning, yes, absolutely. Essential to our learning. Exploration, experimentation.
As I tell my 16-year-old, it's called a
Conversation?
Lessons.
Lessons.
Well, there's that too.
So notice both what part of yourself feels the relief of lying down and whether there's any shift in yourself in some way after the exploration you've been doing. Please roll to your side and come up to standing again. Cross your right leg over your left leg again, so that you stand with your right foot to the left of your left foot. And it can be a little forwards. It doesn't have to be right next to your left foot. It could be a little forwards of, could be a little away from. So really explore how the position of your feet relative to one another, the placement, changes your ability to balance and sense what's going on in the rest of yourself. So just play with that again. So this lesson can be equally effective however you place your right foot in this cross-leg position. And we're looking for a position where your thighs aren't locked together in order to balance, where you're not needing to use the musculature of your legs to balance in the upright position. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So can you unlock your left knee in this position? And maybe you need to do something somewhere else in order to allow that, or change the position of your feet. So just try pushing your knees back so they're locked. You feel how most people's thighs will press together then. And then can you allow your knees to soften a little bit, and think, in order for your knees to bend, maybe there's something you could do with the orientation of your pelvis that might make a difference, or your lower back, or the position of your feet. So you're still holding the feet really close together like that. So pelvis, yeah, great. Okay, so find the comfortable position where you can breathe and where you're most able to soften your legs. They're still supporting you in standing, but they're not holding you rigidly stiff or rigidly straight. And begin to shift your weight more onto your right foot again, and then back onto your left foot. Feel how your right foot receives your weight now that you've explored bringing your weight more onto the forefoot and more onto your heel. And how are you doing this? Again, try keeping your body as one piece. So if you keep your body as one piece, it's like you put a layer of something over yourself so that nothing moves perhaps except your ankles or your feet on the floor. So you're limiting how you adjust yourself, particularly through your torso, and then let that go and initiate the movement from your pelvis. So you're thinking of your pelvis moving left and right, sensing what happens through the length of your spine as you do that. Where are your eyes oriented? You still feel the movement of your breathing? Okay, uncross your legs and rest in walking. When you come back, I'd like you to try on an image. And that is, you know how you've probably all seen jugglers who balance a plate on the top of a stick. Sometimes the stick's on their head and they're moving underneath it to keep the plate balanced on the stick. But you're going to think of your head as the plate and your pelvis as the base of the stick. And see, can you keep your head relatively quiet in space, not fixed, but quiet, you know, and organize your movement to shift your weight with your right leg crossed in front of your left, and shift your weight more onto your right foot and then back onto your left foot. No, well, in this case, you know, the stick can move around, so your spine is not stick-like necessarily. In fact, sapling stick. But it's the idea of adjusting yourself from your pelvis and having the support from your pelvis through your spine to your head, and differentiating through the length of your spine to find the adjustments that could keep your head relatively quiet in space. So there'll be some movement of your head. It could be relative movement. It could be the movement of your head on those first two vertebrae at the top of your spine. So your right leg is crossed in front of your left. Thinking of moving your pelvis leftward and rightward. Maybe you can have the image of the plate being on top of your head. What shapes are you making through the length of your spine? So your pelvis is doing the majority of the work in space, the majority of the movement in space. But in order for your pelvis to be free to move, leftward, rightward, or forwards and backwards, it's your spine that allows the degrees of freedom and movement through the length of your spine that allows your pelvis its mobility. Okay, uncross your legs. See what it's like to shift your weight more onto your right foot, more onto your left foot. And rest in walking. Notice how your right foot travels on the floor. How you feel the pressure moving along the sole of your foot from the place that contacts first towards your toes, and how you sense your left foot, your left leg. And then walk your way to your mat and take a rest in lying again. What interests you now in your way of lying? In how you're experiencing yourself right now? So our standing is a continual act of balancing. We have a small base of support, and in this lesson we're really adding novelty, a little bit of confusion, and narrowing that base of support somewhat, or changing the way we configure that. At first it can feel like a narrowed base of support, especially if we're still forming our standing and the erecting of ourselves in our habitual way. And the challenge is to observe ourselves, to notice what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to find clues or ways of how we might do it a little differently. And some of our difficulties arise, and hence, and following on our frustrations, when we have difficulty hearing the relationships within us that don't change, that we maintain no matter what configuration we're in. So you may recall from the observation and touch process you did yesterday of finding and exploring the orientation of your pelvis in different positions. Often there's a consistency to that, or something that becomes recognizable as our tendency or our bias that may very well have served us usefully to do what we want to do in life in many different contexts. But maybe in the exploration that we're doing now or in another ATM, it doesn't serve you so well. So how do we learn to do things a little differently? First, we need to sense what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to distinguish differences, or to make a distinction between this and that. It's the most essential aspect of learning. And sometimes it's cognitive. Sometimes it's more visual. Sometimes it's more kinesthetic. One of the reasons why we encourage you to do less, make your movements smaller, is that in that way your nervous system might be less engaged in doing what it's already doing and be able to find something new. In that way, or with those qualities, you sense yourself, you give yourself a little more time to judge and determine through your sensing whether you're doing what you're intending to do, or how you're doing what you're doing. And to see if there's, in your way of doing, are you interested in the goal or in how you're getting there? Are you trying to do it well? Or being curious? Now in life, doing it well or better the first time is often pretty important, but when you're learning, it's hard to learn something new or hear something new if you're doing it the way you already know. And you just think, oh, that's how I am, or that's how it happens. It's your nervous system choosing, or not choosing, deciding to do it that way before you've chosen how you want to do it. Please roll yourself to the side, bring yourself up to sitting and up into standing. Scan your standing now, contact of your right foot and your left foot. Slowly begin to explore bringing your left foot to the right of your right foot somewhere. And bring it back. So does your pelvis change its position in space as you do that? Does your head travel to the right also? What's happening? Is your pelvis turning also? Or tilting? One side up or one side down? Try placing your left foot relative to your right foot in some other positions. So a little more forwards, a little closer to the outside edge of your right foot, a little further away to the right. And some people are tending to turn their foot so their toes are pointing more to the right or more to the left. Okay, next time your left foot is to the right of your right foot, stay there and begin to shift your weight more onto your left foot and then return to your right foot. I just sense, how clear is your image of which is your right leg, which is your left leg, how you're bringing your weight to stand on one leg, but now that leg has crossed over your midline, so to speak. So how are you doing it on this side? How do you bring your weight more onto your left foot? Is it more from your pelvis, that you move your pelvis in space? Or do you move yourself as one piece? And which way allows you to maintain the orientation of your head in an upright position? Maybe they both do. Does one way change your breathing more than the other? Okay, uncross your left leg for a moment. Take a pause in standing. You can just walk around yourself or shift your weight a little left and a little right. And come back to standing. Bring your left foot to the right of your right foot. Notice where your left foot is accepting your weight. So you bring your weight over onto your left foot. And just notice it more on the back of the foot or more on the front of the foot. And begin to shift your weight. So you bring your weight more onto the front of your left foot. And then through the middle, so you feel the whole of your foot, and then a little backwards so you feel that the pressure is more distinctly on your heel. And as that gets a little more familiar, a little more comfortable, begin to expand your attention and notice how you're doing that. You're moving your whole self forwards and backwards in space? Or is it more a movement of your pelvis forwards and backwards? And can you try both? Feel what happens through the length of your spine in those two ways. And if you wanted your head to maintain its position in space, which way would serve you to do that? And does that influence what happens through the length of your spine? And if you've got your eyes closed, you open your eyes. Look toward the horizon in front of yourself. Just notice, can you still sense your feet? Sense, imagine what's happening through your spine. Okay. Uncross your legs again. Just see what it's like to shift your weight a little leftward, more onto your left foot, rightward. And then rest in walking. Find a place to stand. And cross your left leg in front of your right leg again. Find a comfortable place. Shift your weight more onto your left foot, and then back to your right foot. Then onto your right foot, your left foot more towards the front of your foot. Then shift the weight to the back of your left foot, more towards the heel. Then can you shift the weight across to your right heel, and then forwards to the front of your right foot, across onto your front of your left foot, and then backwards onto your left heel and across to your right foot again. And begin to shift your weight in this circular fashion. As much as possible, the whole of each foot stays on the floor. Your toes can be quiet, as quiet as possible. If they're not quiet, notice that. Maybe you're making the movement a little large or outside the zone that's easy for you to balance in right now. Can your arms hang softly? Your breathing be free? As you do that, notice how you're moving. Are you moving your whole self as one piece? Or are you doing the motion more leading with your pelvis? Can you do both? So try several times where you're moving more as one. Just notice what happens through your legs as you do that, to the pressure of your feet with the floor. Change directions. And then rest a moment, uncross your legs. Actually rest in walking. If you feel like you need to shake something out, then probably you've stayed in the position too long. That you've heard the sensations and haven't listened to them. So again, I remind you, how can you monitor what you need to do for yourself to create a learning situation? And taking pauses when you need to take a pause is a really important part of that. It's an important part of learning how you learn, and it's important when you're with others. And okay, come back to standing. Cross your left leg over your right leg. This time you're going to come back, return to that circling around your feet, shifting your weight. But think that your pelvis is going to initiate the movement more. You're going to move, your pelvis will move in space. So you're bringing your weight onto the front of your left foot by moving your pelvis, bringing your weight onto the back of your left foot, shifting your pelvis to move your weight onto the back of your right foot, then the front of your right foot, and circling. See, it's great inventing new words. Circling around the pressure around your feet, with your thinking of your pelvis and how it can move to do that. Can your head be relatively quiet in space? So it's not rigid. It's not you stiffening your head in space, but that everything can move underneath your head. And the more you just distribute the movement through your spine and involve those shapes and curves that we've been exploring, the more you might find that your head can be quiet in space and everything free underneath, beneath. Can you change directions of your circles? When does it help to tilt your pelvis backwards? Does it? Have you already discovered that? When does it help to tilt your pelvis a little forwards or to one side? Maybe that's a strategy you're using, or maybe it's not. So if it's not, you could try it out. And find out whether it's possible to have your pelvis even in this challenging position so it can change its orientation in space. And how does that influence your sense of mobility to shift your weight and change the way you're balancing over your feet? Okay, uncross your legs for a moment. And when you come back, could you now come back and cross your right leg in front of your left? And then begin to explore circling around your feet. Maybe you could try a figure of 8. You go to the front of your right foot, around the weight goes more to the inside edge of your right foot, back to your heel, then across to the toes of your left foot, down the inside edge and around the back of the heel, up the outside edge of the heel, and across and up around your right foot. Can your feet know where your pelvis is? Can your pelvis know where your feet are distributing their weight to the floor? And change directions. And then uncross your legs and rest in walking. And as you're walking, could you find a partner? Whoops. And I'll show you what you're going to do. May I borrow your partner for a moment? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're going to stand either in front or behind your partner and bring your hands to contact their head. And first of all, with their legs uncrossed, find out what it's like to... So you're going to give them feedback about keeping the relative position of the head. Okay? Could you move your pelvis right and left? Mm-hmm. So you can do this with the legs uncrossed. You can do it from the front. If you're more comfortable, you can do it from the back. My hands are just finding a place where my fingers aren't in her eyes and I'm supporting her skull. Some people don't like their ears being, touched or covered, so I'm keeping her ears clear. Okay, could you cross one leg over the front of the other? Yep, whichever one you like. Okay. And now, can you shift your weight around your feet? So I can go with Madhavi, and I'm getting a sense that her head moves forwards in space. Pelvis is moving in space. All of her is moving forwards and backwards in space. So now I'm going to just give her a little bit more contact. And now can you keep your head where it is and move your weight, your pelvis, to the right, to the left, a little forwards, a little backwards. So she can begin to sense what happens through the rest of her spine. Okay? So legs uncrossed, standing, and circle your pelvis. Try it with crossed over legs. And if you like, the third way you could try it is to sit on a chair and circle the pelvis. So you're thinking of moving the pelvis in space. Find out what they're doing first, and then what we're really exploring is what's the possibility for maintaining the position of the head in space relatively quietly and finding a way to move the pelvis through space so the spine is distributing the movement in a way that aids that, facilitates that. Okay? So with your partner, you're just going to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes each. I'll tell you when to swap. So it's standing, legs uncrossed, standing normally, trying it with the legs crossed over, one way or the other way, and also in sitting.
I'm really flaky about this. I'm happy to work, but I think Christine would actually get, I don't know, because I'm...
Let me turn. You can ask your partner for feedback about where your hands are.